Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier for Weekend Wrap, taking a look back at last Saturday's Grade 2 Fountain of Youth, an important Kentucky Derby prep. 50 qualifying points for the Derby to the winner of the Fountain of Youth. They break from the gate, faster pace than in the Holy Bull.
Much faster pace, and I think that obviously helped out your eventual winner, Gulfstream. But going into the first turn, interesting. Takaful didn't break all that sharp. You get 3 rules to go out there, and Irish Warcry, he works out a really nice trip right here.
He's up close to the pace. The pace is fast. You mentioned Takaful in those Shadwell blue silks darting down to the inside right now. And right now, Paco Lopez is worried because Takaful is refusing to be in behind horses.
Yeah, which is obviously a problem. This horse just hasn't learned to relax at all, and I wonder if a turn back is in his future. As for everyone else that's up close to the pace right now, it is hot, but everyone seems to be moving pretty well. That's including Made You Look for Pletcher. He's a turf horse. Don't hold this one against him.
Favorite Irish Warcry, who wired the Holy Bull last time out, is up there prompting little 3 Rules, who's stretching out in his second start as a 3-year-old. Distance limitations perhaps for 3 Rules, but he ran really well.
He ran very well. You could make the case he ran second best race in this spot, even though he finished third in here. But he goes out there, he does what he's supposed to do. Irish Warcry, right about now is when things are going to get a little bit hairy for him, and obviously things don't work out the way everyone thought they would.
Here come the closers. Practical Joke, third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Multiple Grade 1 winner at 2. That's the number 6. He is in full flight on the outside, coming with a 3-wide move. And right behind him is Gulfstream. Game second in the Holy Bull without much pace last time out. He got the pace, and he just stays better than Practical Joke.
Yeah, and if you were a fan of Practical Joke, you had to be a little bit concerned right now because the questions about the stamina with Practical Joke were always there. Gulfstream, you know the distance isn't going to be a problem. He had a full head of steam. You're going to see he's a little bit late to change leads, Gulfstream, but once he does, he's well on his way.
It was well over at this point. Gulfstream on his way to win by 5 3/4 lengths. Practical Joke had to work very hard to outgame a very game 3 Rules for second. Forget the rest.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I want to go that far just yet, but at the end of the day, with the exception of Irish Warcry, it's not like you had a ton of quality in here behind him. I also want to give the benefit of the doubt to Made You Look because he is a turf horse.
Gulfstream racing one of racing's newest millionaires. He won this race. Of course, he won the Delta Jackpot. He won the Saratoga Special Sprinting. Not bad for a $16,000 Keeneland September yearling by Dialed In, who, thanks to Gulfstream's win in the Delta Jackpot last year, was leading first crop sire by money earned.
And, you know, we obviously knew what his game was. It was distance, and it was coming from the back of the pack. Gulfstream follows some of those same traits. The only difference, I think, between those two, his dad and him, Gulfstream seems to have a little bit more agility, and I think that's going to go a long way.
Antonio Sano, as I mentioned, the Florida Derby, the likely next goal for Gulfstream. Not surprising at all. I don't think 1 1/8 should be too far for Gulfstream. It all really depends on pace.
It's always going to be pace and trip for him, and Javier even talked about it coming out of the Holy Bull, that, you know what, we tried to get him into the run a little bit earlier. He likes to make that one run, though, so Javier learned a little bit more about him coming into this spot. And the other thing, too, is that was not some sort of an optical illusion, him lengthening there. And he got his final 5/16 and 31-1. That's a big number. That's a big sort of incremental time split if you want to take a look at that in Formulator. That projects very well going forward.
Practical Joke's a good horse. He ran well again. I'm not sure really if additional distances are going to suit him, but I guess his fans would say, and Chad would say, it was his first start since the Breeders' Cup. Maybe he needed the race. Something tells me that Chad had him cranked on go and ready for this spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with anyone that said that he needed one, but at the same time, I feel like he ran the Breeders' Cup Juvenile again. He made his move on the far turn, and he flattened out a little bit. I wonder if this is the maximum as far as distance is concerned.
Really liked 3 Rules' effort, and I think the connections are saying the Kentucky Derby's probably a little bit too much. They're thinking maybe the Preakness of the 3 Triple Crown races. It's the shortest. Maybe it would work out for 3 Rules, but he was very game considering that he was up on the pace with Irish Warcry and Takaful and Made You Look, and he was still there at least at the quarter pole.
Yeah, you know, I said it at the top, and I believe it, that you could make the case he ran the second best race in here behind Gulfstream. That's not, it's, you know, no knock against Practical Joke, but I like the idea of him waiting for the Preakness. We talk about how unsuccessful new shooters are in the Preakness. I think under normal circumstances, those are horses that don't fit for the Kentucky Derby quality-wise. You can make the case that 3 Rules is a quality enough sort that the Derby is not unrealistic. I think the connections are looking at it, though, saying shorter, and we can go in fresh. I have no knock against that idea if they go that route.
Graham Motion puzzled by the disappointing 7th place finish from favorite Irish Warcry, but if any horse deserves a mulligan, it's this one.
Yeah.
3 for 3 coming into this race, a horse that had won with various running styles, whether it was on the lead or coming from well off of the pace. It's so tough to fire a bad one, leading up to the Kentucky Derby, but this horse deserves another chance somewhere.
The last thing you want is a hiccup at this time of year. Having said that, this horse has shown way too much in his first 3 starts to believe that this is actually what he is. And Graham Motion sounded puzzled, like you say. No real excuse at this stage in the game. I think he deserves every right to come right back, and I'm not going to be surprised if he rebounds and runs another big race. He had run much too well in the first 3 to believe that this is what he is.
You understand why they tried Major Look here on the dirt. If you have any 3-year-old with talent on any surface, you're going to take at least one shot against the big boys. It didn't work out. He was close to the pace. He'll be just fine returning to turf.
And I think he's a very nice turf horse. You made mention of it Saturday on DRF Live. This seems to be an uncharacteristically deep 3-year-old turf crop. I think he fits right in there as one of the best, though.
And Tocqueville's one big race came sprinting. So we saw the Remsen, 1 1/8 second time out. That didn't work out. Wet track against El Arib around 2 turns. That didn't work out. You saw him just throwing a fit going into the first turn when restrained by Paco. Time to turn him back.
He needs to learn to relax a little bit, but I agree. Turn him back. And I don't even know if we want to try a race like the Pat Day right now. Mile seems like, let's get him back to a true sprint, whether it's the Bayshore up here at Aqueduct or long-term Woody Stevens in races like the King's Bishop down the road.
Unfortunately, the South American invader, Huracan Americo, took a bad step. He had to be vanned off. Unfortunately, was euthanized.
Yeah, terrible for the connections. You wanted to come up here and take a shot, and obviously this is the last thing anyone wants to see happen.
But Guinevere is a very fun horse to watch. He tries hard every step, and he got a fig for this race. A 97 Beyer speed figure for the Fountain of Youth. It looks like he's going on to the Florida Derby. He's got the points now, certainly, to make it into the gate on the first Saturday in May.